Hello Beach Class. I hope you're all doing okay. Me and Rosie thought that we would read you a story in case you've been missing any of our stories at school. Today we're going to read The Lighthouse Keeper's Lunch. Once there was a lighthouse keeper called Mr. Grinling. At night time, he lived in a small white cottage perched high on the cliffs. In the daytime, he rode out to his lighthouse on the rocks to clean and polish the light. Over here. Mr. Grinling was a most industrious lighthouse keeper. Come rain or shine, he tended his light. Sometimes at night, as Mr. Grinling lay sleeping in his warm bed, the ships would toot to tell him that his light was shining brightly and clearly out to sea. Can you see there's a little cat with Mr. Grinling, just like our little cat here. Each morning, while Mr. Grinling polished the light, Mrs. Grinling worked in the kitchen off the little white cottage on the cliffs, concocting a delicious lunch for him. Once she had prepared the lunch, she packed it into a special little basket and clipped it to the wire that ran from the little white cottage to the lighthouse on the rocks. But one morning, something terrible happened. Mrs. Grinling had prepared a particularly appetising lunch. She had made a mixed seafood salad, a lighthouse sandwich, cold chicken ganny, sausages and crisps, peach surprise, I wonder what the surprise is, iced sea biscuits, drinks and assorted fruit. There's even a pineapple, can you see? She put the lunch in the basket as usual and sent it down the wire. But the lunch did not arrive. It was spotted by 1, 2, 3 scavenging seagulls who set upon it and devoured it with great gusto. "Clear off, you varmints!" shouted Mr. Grinling, but the seagulls took not the slightest of notice. "This is an excellent peach surprise, boys. She's a great cook, Fred. Scrumptious lunch, Tom." That evening, Mr. and Mrs. Grinling decided on a plan to baffle the seagulls. "Tomorrow I shall tie the napkin to the basket," said Mrs. Grinling. "Of course, my dear, a sound plan." Uh-oh. Do you think it worked? They'll have to try harder next time, Bert. Oh, and Boba's joined us. On Tuesday evening, Mr. and Mrs. Grinling racked their brains for another plan. "They are a brazen lot, these seagulls," said Mrs. Grinling. "Brazen indeed," said Mr. Grinling. "What shall we do?" "Our cat does not appear to like seagulls," said Mrs. Grinling. "Do you like seagulls, Rosie?" "No, she doesn't." "No, my dear," said Mr. Grinling. "Hamish is an accomplished seagull chaser." "Of course," exclaimed Mrs. Grinling. "Tomorrow, Hamish the cat can guard the lunch." "A most ingenious plan," agreed Mr. Grinling. Hamish did not think this plan was ingenious at all. He spat and hissed as Mrs. Grinling secured him in the basket. There, Hamish," said Mrs. Grinling consolingly. "I'll have a tasty piece of herring waiting for you when you arrive home." Sadly, Flying did not agree with Hamish. His fur stood on end when the basket swayed. His whiskers drooped when he peered down at the wet blue sea, and he felt much too sick to even notice the seagulls, let alone chase them away from the lunch. pretty kitty like a piece of lobster, Mornay. This food gets better every day, Fred. Aren't you going to chase us, Kitty? Oh, I wonder how Hamish is feeling, because he doesn't look very happy, does he? Lackaday, sighed Mr. Grinlin sadly. Wow, wow, agreed Hamish pitifully. On Wednesday evening, Mr. and Mrs. Grinlin wrapped their braids again for a new plan. What shall we do? Said Mr. Grinlin. Mrs. Grinlin looked thoughtful. I have it, she exclaimed. Just the mixture for hungry seagulls. Oh, indeed, my dear, said Mr. Grinlin. What have you in mind? Wait and see, said Mrs. Grinlin. Just you wait and see. I wonder, Beachcloss, what could Mrs. Grinlin have up her sleeve? I think Hamish hopes it's not anything to do with him again. Mustard sandwiches, chuckled Mr. Grinlin. A truly superb plan, my dear. Truly superb. Because mustard doesn't taste very nice to seagulls, does it? It's very strong and very stinky, and I don't think seagulls like them. On Thursday morning, Mrs. Grinlin carefully packed the mustard sandwiches and sent them off down the wire to the expectant seagulls. Uh-oh. Yuck. Ugh. I don't think those seagulls like them. On Friday, Mrs. Grinlin repeated the mustard mixture. All right, boys, let's go and have a lunch elsewhere. It's the same lunch as yesterday, Fred. So on Saturday, up in the little white cottage on the cliffs, a jubilant Mrs. Grinlin put away the mustard pot before she prepared a scrumptious lunch for Mr. Grinlin. While he waited for his lunch down in the lighthouse on the rocks, Mr. Grinlin sang snatches of old sea shanties as he surveyed the coastline through his telescope. I wonder what he saw. This is what he saw. No mustard in this lot, Tom. This is a delicious chocolate eclair, Fred. We'll fly back again here for our lunch tomorrow, boys. I think they found somebody else's lunch to steal. Ah, well, such is life, mused Mr. Grinlin as he sat down to enjoy a leisurely lunch in the warm sunshine. What's your favourite part of Mr. Grinlin's lunch? I think I'd like this giant cake. Or maybe this banana over here. Thanks for watching, and I hope you're sharing lots of stories at home, because I know how much you love stories and I'm excited to hear all about them. Stay safe.